Hello. It's the Phebe Swill platform, and yes, today on my show we're talking to a very hard-working Sierra Leonean who's dedicated a lot of his time to the country, rendering his services. So today we're celebrating him on my show. We're talking about his life. How did he get to do what he was doing, his experience in the field, and what more can be said to the country. Ladies and gentlemen, viewers, welcome Dr. Nahim, who is the consultant psychiatric here in Sierra Leone. Dr. Nahim, thank you very much for being on my platform.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Dr. Nahim, let's get to talk about your life from the beginning days. Who was Dr. Nahim as a boy?
Well, I was born in Port Loko by a Timini woman. My first language was Timini, my second was Creole, my third was English, my fourth was French, my fifth Russian.
Oh, wow.
So as you can see, I speak 5 languages. And I went to the Sri Lanka Secondary School in Port Loko. I found a member. My admission number then was 15. So as you can see, that's quite a long time ago.
The first batch.
That's right, yes. So after Sri Lanka school, because it was a new school, you know, after the 3rd form, I went to the Bow School. The Bow School then was the Bow School. The principal was a European. The lecturers were all Europeans and so on. And I did very well at the Bow School. I was there up to upper 6. And I passed my A-levels, especially in chemistry, with the best result for West Africa, British West Africa then.
You were, oh, well, from that stage you were making a mark in the sciences.
Well, then if you want to be a doctor, you have to do the sciences. So I wanted to be a doctor anyway. That's
when did that thought come to your mind that I want to be a doctor? At what stage in your life did you have that ambition?
Well, from school I said I'm going to be a medical doctor, and you know, that was my aim.
Did your parents approve?
Well, I did not ask. It was my own business, you know. I didn't ask them to decide what I want to do.
So this again comes to mind. How were your parents? You know, back then, even these days, sometimes you get parents who would tell their kids what to do and what to become. They would already have their kids and say, okay, this one is going to be a lawyer, this a doctor. How were your parents in that regard?
No, my parents were liberal.
Oh.
All what they wanted was for me to go to school, to make sure I did very well at school, pass my exams and go forward. But I told them I want to be a doctor, I'm doing the sciences, and they said, go ahead. So they approved from scratch.
How many siblings do you have?
Myself? Well, actually, I'm married with 2 children. The children are grown-ups now. They're all in America.
What's the gender of your kids?
Well, the gender of my kids, females.
Just two females?
Just 2 females.
Wow.
And they say that if your first child is a female, then you're a very lucky man.
Well, you are a lucky man indeed.
I can say that was quite correct. I've been a lucky man all my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
Yes, I have brothers and
How
sisters.
many?
I have 3 brothers in Germany, 1 in America, the other 2 at Lungi. So as you can see, it's quite a big family. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So after secondary school, what's the story of how you transitioned from being a secondary school boy to a university student?
Well, then I applied for a scholarship to go and study medicine in the Soviet Union. It was then the Soviet Union. As you can see, the Soviet Union is no longer the Soviet Union now because it has disintegrated. But then I went to the Ukraine. And in the Ukraine, it was then part of the Soviet Union. You have to learn Russian because the tuition then was in Russian, not in English. So you have to learn the Russian language And then all the lectures were in Russian, and it's quite a while. You know, I spent 1 year learning the language and 6 years in the medical school. So in all, it's 7 years to graduate as a medical doctor.
Just to properly understand it, you did not do your university studying in Sierra Leone?
No, I never did any university training in any African country. All my trainings were in Europe, Eastern Europe and Western Europe.
How did you get to study in Russia? Was it that your parents were so wealthy they paid the tuition, or you got a scholarship?
No, well, in those years, it was the Soviet Union. They were giving big scholarships to Sierra Leoneans. In fact, at the time I went, it was 100 scholarships free, which means that, you know, the tuition was free from scratch to finish. Even the airport transport was free, the plane flight was free. Everything was free.
A lot of students back then in the country. Why would you say you were selected amongst those who benefited from the scholarship?
Well, it depends on your qualification. You know, if you're highly qualified, then they will take you. You see, it depends. As I told you before, you know, my qualifications were very high at A level. So I had no problem at all. In fact, if anything, I think I was the #1.
Wow.
So I had no problem.
Your first years was it Russia?
No, Ukraine.
In Ukraine. Your first years in Ukraine.
Yes.
How was life for you in a foreign country you've never been before as a young man there to study with all the distractions around? And then foreign language that you do not understand.
Well, I learned languages very easily. As I told you before, I can speak 5 languages. So the language was not my problem at all. I learned the language within 3 months. And in fact, if I tell you something, you won't believe it. The language I learned was not in school, but in the streets.
Well, that's the best place to learn languages, right? If you want to learn a language, that's the best place to learn.
I had many friends, and then they would teach me the local Russian language. And at one point, I was talking the local Russian language in class, and the teacher, a female teacher, went red. And he said, look, whoever is teaching you that language in the streets, tell him that you're a student so that you speak, you know, the decent language.
Okay, so you were more of like speaking the street version, but it's still good because you were getting to learn the language.
No, you have to talk to people outside the classroom. So it was 2 languages, the classroom language and the street language.
How difficult was it for you initially when the classes started that you did not understand the language? Did it affect your grades in any way the first few semesters?
No, it did not affect my grade at all. As I told you, I can adapt very easily. And I enjoyed my life, you know, from day one. I had no problem. I made friends, and the friends were very good. I went out, you know. I never isolated myself. And people were very willing to help, you know, because in those years, foreigners were very few, and they loved me, and, you know, they treated me very well.
Speaking of they loved you, I mentioned it somewhere that, oh, tomorrow I'm having an interview with Dr. Nahim, and there was an elderly woman who just said, oh, as in Dr. Nahim from the psychiatric hospital? I said, yes. Oh, he was such a handsome man when he was young in Sierra Leone. Well, that is a very good compliment. That must have had its own effects on you in university days. No, how was Dr. Nahim and the ladies?
When I was young, I was very handsome. And I think I'm still handsome.
Yeah, well, he is, right? We agree you're still
I'm
handsome.
not a young man anymore. But at least I can function very well.
Yes, that's against you guys. Very against you guys. Yeah. Dr. Nahim, how was your life with the ladies on campus? Imagine a nice and cute, handsome African man studying in a foreign country who was very smart and intelligent. It's all the plus and pluses for women to just be attracted to you and just fall for you. How were you and the ladies?
Well, with my ladies, not the ones in my class, the ones outside the class.
Why not in the class, but outside the class? Was it your private policy?
No, it was not a private policy. You enjoy much more with, you know, ladies outside the classroom because, I mean, they know you differently and they help you in every way that you can think about, you know.
So were you like the player type of young man in university, having multiple girlfriends, or you were just this studious man who concentrates only on education? You know, like we have them, sometimes we say the bookish type.
Now, I was very studious, but at the same time, you know, after classes, I made sure that I enjoyed myself. Because, I mean, if you sit down studying all the time, you'll get very bored, and life will not be interesting at all.
Yeah.
You see? And when you talk to people outside the class, you learn the language better. Because in Russia, during that time in the Ukraine, you know, when you're writing your exams, it's not writing on a piece of paper, it's all verbal, which means the examiner will talk to you and you answer the questions. So all the questions and answers are verbal. And if your language is excellent, then you will score very good marks. And as I told you, my language was very good from classroom and from the streets as well.
Let's talk about your wife. Do you have a wife? Is there a Mrs. Nahim? We know about the two girls, the two beautiful women you had as girls growing up. What about their mother?
Well, actually, what happened was that I got married in the Ukraine. As you can see, that was a bit better because when you get married, you are under control. Yeah.
Did you guys hear that? As in, when you get married, you're under control.
That's
A word
right.
for the wise. Yes, so you were now under control.
Yes, I was under control.
By
and
Mrs. Nahim.
Behaving very well, that's right.
Oh, wow. So how did you get to meet Mrs. Nahim?
Well, actually, what
was
happened
the picture the
that,
day you met?
You know, I think it was during the holidays. We went to the beach, and you know, in the beach, you are more or less in your swimsuit and so on. And she was very attractive and so on. So I went and spoke to her and started dating each other.
Oh, no. When you went to talk to her, what did you say? What were your first words, if you can remember
Then I
them?
introduced myself, and I said, I would like to talk to you, learn language from you, and so on. She said, okay, no problem.
I like that trick, ladies. When a gentleman walks up to you and says, I want to learn the language, it could just be the Dr. Nahim and Mrs. Nahim situation all over again. So,
Right.
So how long did you court before you got married?
I think about a year and a half.
Then you tied the knot.
That's right, yes. We were living together anyway before we tied the knot. So as you can see,
This was going fast.
that's right, yes, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. How old were both of you at the time you met and got married?
Well, I think I was then in my early 20s, something like 24 or so. That's right, 24 years.
Are you still together?
Yes, we're still together.
So he married when he was 24. They're still
Right.
together.
Right.
Did I hear someone say, okay, I won't say a word about that. So you got married at 24 and you are still together.
I'm still married, I'm still together, I'm still with my children, although my children are in the USA. But
So
we
she's
are-
the mother of the two children.
That's right, but
Wow.
you know, we are in contact regularly on WhatsApp and Facebook.
Thank God for the social media.
That's right, the social
Keeps us
media is
closer.
very good because you can make video calls, you see each other and so on. You can talk for quite a long time for free, and you know, it's quite good.
It depends on the network you're using.
No, I'm
But yes.
using internet, you know. the
Yes, but
internet.
yeah, social media helps people to stay connected.
And the internet I'm using is very good, it's AFCOM internet.
Good.
That's, you know, not far from here.
Dr. Nahim, did you ever at some point in your life regret marrying at that age?
No, I enjoyed my life from day one, and I'm still enjoying my life up till today. I never had any regrets.
Wow.
And as a psychiatrist, I know how to treat my regrets.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's a key one. Now, we're going to talk to Dr. Nahim to know how you chose psychiatric, how's the course called?
Psychiatry.
Psychiatry.
Yeah,
Is it
psychiatry.
psychiatry?
Psychiatry. That's
How
right,
did you
yeah.
choose psychiatry? What inspired that and your life in the field? But we'll take a quick break. A message from our sponsors, Rokel Commercial Bank and Sierra Pharmatech. Don't forget, we're here at Golden Tulip Hotel. This is our venue for the Phebe Swill platform, thanks to the management of Golden Tulip Hotel. We're taking a break. Stay with us.
SIM couple allow old and young to make deposits and withdraw cash from their account at any time and anywhere. With Rokel Commercial Bank SIM couple, you can send and receive money at any place and any time. Rokel Commercial Bank don't make life better for we all.
All right, thank you very much for staying with us through that break. We're talking to Dr. Edward Nahim, the consultant psychiatric in Sierra Leone. So we're celebrating him today. Dr. Nahim, how did you get to choose that psychiatry is what you want to study? How did you make
actually,
the choice?
my initial choice was general medicine. You know, I worked at Connaught. When I graduated, you have to do work in all the specialties to gain experience. I worked at Connaught. I did surgery. I did pediatrics. I did everything. And then I told the chief medical officer I want to go and do postgraduate study. Then it was Marcella Davis, and she said, well, what subject do you want to do? I said, general medicine. And she said, you know what, Dr. Nahim, we don't have any psychiatrists in Sierra Leone. Why don't you go and do psychiatry? I said, I have, for me, it's also medicine. No problem, I'll do psychiatry. And what she did for me was excellent.
What did she do?
Well, she introduced me to the then British, High Commissioner who was here, that we need a psychiatrist, and, I have one candidate. And they gave me the best psychiatric hospital in the United Kingdom.
Wow.
That is the Institute of Psychiatry, King's College, University of London, the #1 psychiatric hospital in the world.
So that's where you went to study?
That's where I went to study for another 4 years. So as you can see, I'm a graduate from the #1 Institute of Psychiatry on planet Earth.
Yeah, well, that's a plus on your side.
And I did not only study there, I passed all the exams. And after passing all the exams, I became a consultant. I was offered a job with a very high pay. But what I did was I declined the pay.
That's in the UK?
Yes, in the UK, in London.
Why would they want to do that to us?
No, well, that's why they are concerned.
We asked that we don't have a psychiatric in the country, and we asked for you, and they wanted to take you?
Them, it was a hospital. With the hospitals, they can ask anybody to go and work for them.
So you declined to come back home and serve?
Definitely, yes. I declined twice. I was in Sydney, Australia. I was offered a job for $30,000 a month. I also declined.
Imagine at that time, that was a lot of money.
A lot of money. And in New York also, $25,000 a month, I declined because then there is no psychiatrist in Sierra Leone. And there is no consultant psychiatrist in Sierra Leone up till now.
Wow. Yes, again, that is something we will talk about.
From 1980 to date.
That's a lot. Let's talk about the cause itself. While you were studying psychiatry, how difficult is that cause?
Well, psychiatry is one of the most difficult causes, in medicine. And the pass rate for, African doctors was very low. I think it was something like 2%. So as a result, most African doctors never opted for psychiatry. And as you can see, it's quite difficult. But, as I told you, I can manage with any subject. And I did very well, passed all the exams without any problem, without even failing any exam.
You've spoken about since the 1980s. Of course, you've been the only consultant psychiatrist in the country. Why do you think it's been impossible to get other people to go study the same course, come back home, and be the Dr. Nahim replacement in the country?
Well, there are two major reasons. One, as I said earlier, the course is very, very difficult. And two, psychiatry in Sierra Leone is a poor profession. Poor profession in the sense that when patients are mentally ill, they don't have money to pay you. So, and take into account that, what government pays you is okay, but then you would like to make some more money, at least to get extra monies to do something else. You see, and
you made a lot of sacrifice, that you were offered up to $30,000 a month, and then you turned that down to come home and do something in the interest of the country only, because the pay rate is vastly different.
Well, as I said, psychiatry, in psychiatry, you don't make a lot of money here. And if I can, I had a patient, when was that, 2 days ago, came with 10,000 leons for treatments into my private clinic. And you have to give that patient treatment, give drugs, which will cost over 100,000, which I did for free. And then the patient will ask you, doctor, I don't have transport, so you'll give another 5,000 leons. So as you can see, it's more or less a charity job. But for me, money is not my problem. I'm not interested in money anyway, although you need money.
That's a tough one that we're still struggling to get a replacement. What do you think we can do as a country, perhaps, to get a replacement of Dr. Nahim? Well, not just a replacement, replacements. More science students going in to study psychiatry.
Now we have a doctor, Dr. Abdul Jallo, who did psychiatry, but he has not completed yet. He did part 1, he has to do part 2 to finish and become a consultant psychiatrist. So he's more or less helping me at the Kisi Mental Hospital now. I'm on contract anyway up till now. So he's more or less helping me, but he's doing more for administration rather than, the psychiatric course itself. So he has to go back to complete his training. So as you can see, we have a doctor who is online.
So once he does, we go back to the same story. Just one consultant psychiatrist in the country. That's what we would get. We still don't see many young people expressing interest in studying psychiatry. Again, do you think it's because the course is so, well, it's not done in Sierra Leone, that's one. And again, going to study it might be really expensive. Do you see that, again, as another challenge why we don't have science students going in for the course?
I don't think the expense of studying psychiatry is making money. Our young doctors now want quick and big monies. You don't want to go, and waste time with people where they don't get much money. For example, you do obstetrics, gynecology, you make a lot of money.
Yeah, and everybody wants to be rich.
That's
that
right.
includes me.
Yes, you do a cesarean section, you make money. You do a dilatation and curating, you make money. You do abortions, you make money. As you can see, you can make quick and big monies for a very short time, and you'll be very lucky. And
so the financial reward in itself is another one.
In fact, I had a case. A doctor I was training went and told the parents that I'm going to do psychiatric training. They mobilized and called her and said, you know what, we are not very rich. We have spent all our monies to train you. That's one. This is toothbrush and toothpaste. To go and do psychiatry, we don't want to listen it from your mouth again. go do something else.
Oh, wow.
So as you can see, even the parents are not very happy with anybody going to do psychiatry.
What do you think we can do as a country to change that narrative so that it becomes more encouraging for science students to go and study psychiatry?
Well, I'll tell you what they do overseas.
Mm-hmm.
What they do overseas is that psychiatrists are paid much more than the other consultants. If we do the same thing here, people will, opt for psychiatry. But if you're a psychiatrist here, your salary is the same like any other specialist. So that's the problem. I've said it over and over, let us increase the salary of the psychiatrist 2 times, 3 times, or even 4 times. Then that will, make people get interested in psychiatry and go into psychiatry. But if it's the same salary, and the same condition of service, it's very difficult.
Dr. Nahim, life doesn't last forever. Nobody lives on forever. We all get to die someday at some point. Upon your death, what would you want people to remember you most for?
Well, people know me when you say Dr. Nahim, they say that Christmas doctor. That's my name, you see. So people know me. In fact, I think people will sympathize with me, and they've done it once. Somebody went on social media and said Dr. Nahim is dead. And you can't believe it. I had phone calls from America, from England, Germany, right through the night. But then I told everybody that I'm still alive and well. As you can see, I'm still alive and well. I rose from the dead anyway.
You resurrected. The resurrection challenge.
That's right.
But what would you want people to remember when the name Dr. Nahim pops up? How would you want people to celebrate your life on Earth and in Sierra Leone?
Well, that Dr. Nahim was a consultant psychiatrist. He worked in psychiatry. He dedicated his life in psychiatry. He did everything to help psychiatric patients. And psychiatric hospital itself, you know, I did quite a lot there to improve on it, you see. So as you can see, people, in fact, I don't have to tell people, they know already. You see, when you see Dr. Nahim, they say, oh, I've had his name from the time I was a child. And we have these nurses who come for psychiatric training. And they all will come to my office to see who is this Dr. Nahim. Because they hear my name,
as
they've
we've
never
seen you
me
today. We've put a face to the name Dr. Nahim.
Yes.
Dr. Nahim would get to talk more about cases you have, the most complex cases you've had to deal with. What's a typical day at work like for you? You'd have to paint all those pictures for us, but we'll come to talk about all those in a bit. Let's take another commercial break. A message from our sponsors, Commercial Bank and Sierra Pharmatech SPT. We're at Golden Tulip Hotel, and this is the Phebe Swill platform.
Farmers from across the globe have a strong bond and passion for the soil, which leads to nurturing of the land. What they need is the support of high-performing agricultural solutions. A wide variety of implements like rotavators, self-propelled combines, Dix plow, MB plow, Dix harrow, cultivator, reversible MB plow, and other implements. We are confident that the coming years will bring greater results with the trust and confidence of our associates, business partners, and customers on our products and services. Sonalika tractors range from 20 horsepower to 120 horsepower. We are ready to address the common challenge of food security, highest customer satisfaction, and superior agricultural solutions. For distribution and dealership, contact Shalima Trading Company, 40B Wilkinson Road, Freetown. Telephone 099 909012. Sonalika.
Okay, welcome back, welcome back. We still have Dr. Edward Nahim. Dr. Nahim, paint us a picture of a typical day at work.
Well, I wake up at around 5 in the morning, get ready to go to the Kisi Mental Hospital. I live at UN Drive by the military headquarters of Wilkinson Road. Because of the traffic, I have to leave latest 6 a.m. every day. So when I get to the hospital, I'm more or less the first to be there. And then patients know that I come very early, and they also come very early. So I start seeing patients, the outpatients come, I treat them, give them their medications, they go. Well, we have inpatients as well, patients that we admit, so you have to see them. I see them later on, see how they are doing and so on. and then you have to write their notes. If it's a new admission, you have to examine the patient, write a report, and so on, and put the patient on treatment, talk to the patient, do psychotherapy, and sometimes I give injections myself and tablets myself. And the police also bring in patients. You know, there's many mentally ill patients that kill. You see, when they kill, I have to write the psychiatric reports. And the psychiatric report is very, very important, because when I write and sign that report, we have to invoke what is known as the Lunacy Acts in the laws of Sierra Leone. I will say that this man was examined by me, diagnosed as mentally ill, not fit to plead, and not guilty by reason of insanity. So as you can see, and any patient that I see, I give a paper. And when these patients go out, they say, Dr. Nahim, don't give me crisp paper. That means if they kill you, both case.
So some people even do it now when they're about to quarrel with people. You know, me, I get crisp paper. Dr. Nahim don't stamp with paper. So it's always that crazy.
So as you can see.
But Dr. Nahim, have you had cases where some of these people that they would send to you for psychiatric evaluation who have committed crimes like murder turn out to not be patients of psychiatry, who are not, they're not really mentally deranged?
Well, actually, no. Most of the patients that committed murder, when you examine them properly, you know, they have psychiatric problems. And, you know, I admit them anyway. You admit them, you observe them, you treat them, and then you write the reports, you see. Because if you're a normal person, there's no way you just get up and kill somebody. You see, you have to think twice that, one, it's a crime, punishable by law, and the punishment for murder formerly was murder as well. They hang you. But now, I don't know.
With amnesty, that is
That's
not...
right. It's no longer done.
Dr. Nahim, with the way it's when you think about it, that you guys have to be dealing with mentally deranged people, different classes and categories of them every day, it's really scary. What are some of the scary experiences you've had while working with your patients?
Well,
What's the most scary you've had?
The point is, when I examine patients, in my examination room, I leave the door wide open, and I tell the nurse to be watching what is happening inside, just in case there is a fight, because the patient can attack you. I've been attacked several times. One patient, you know, saw my car in the street, damaged all the windows. And when I drive, I have some money in my glove compartment. When a patient stops you, you have to bribe him not to disturb you, you know. And at one point, I was going to the market, the patient physically attacked me. So as you can see, it's quite a dangerous job. And when I'm walking, a patient does not walk behind me. You walk in front. Because, because
just in case.
Because if you walk behind me, you never can tell. You might hit you on the head.
For any magaments.
Well, when you walk in front, when you turn towards me, I know what you want to do, then there's going to be a fight.
And you know how to react towards
No,
that.
it's going to be a fight, yeah. You know, sometimes you have to fight physically.
That's quite scary.
Of course it's scary, yeah.
you and your patients.
Yes.
Dr. Nahim, we've also heard you talking on several platforms before about the rate of mentally deranged people we have. At some point you said, we were in Adowe Chris, Uboku passed the one day we did inside, na Chris Yadi.
The mental ill population for Sierra Leone is about 1 million, and it is growing. The reason why it is growing is that the population is increasing and the facilities are getting less and less. As you can see, unemployment is very high and money business is a problem. And we have a serious problem. The most serious problem now is drug abuse. 80% of all admissions to the mental hospital are for drugs. And the drugs commonly abused now, marijuana, jamba, tramadol, alcohol, heroin, cocaine. And what is most important is that Sierra Leone is a transit point for cocaine from Latin America. And cocaine has, you know, a lot of money. The international market is in the billions of dollars. In West Africa, it's in the millions of dollars. And if you traffic your cocaine from Sierra Leone, I don't want to see what is going to happen. But if you look at some of these big houses people build, then you ask your question, what jobs are they doing? Where are they getting all those big monies from? You see, so drug abuse is a serious problem. And with drug abuse, you get mentally ill. And when you're mentally ill, you can kill. You can do anything. You don't argue much, you know.
Is the hospital well capacitated to handle more of the cases we have in the country?
No, well, what we're trying to do now, as I said, with 1 million population, we cannot admit all of them. So we admit the most dangerous ones, the ones referred for, you know, treatments and reports that have committed serious crimes like arson, damage to property, wounding, murders, and so on. So we don't have the facility, we don't have the personnel, and it's just one psychiatric hospital for all of Sierra Leone. The Kisi Mental Hospital has a very good record because it's the first psychiatric hospital for all of Black Africa. 187 years old. Older than Connaught Hospital is about 60 years or something like that, you know. The Kisi Mental Hospital is 107 years old. Then it was a place for recaptive slaves and everything and so on. From there now they moved to Connaught Hospital. And, you know, it has a very good history and it's functioning very well. Even with all the problems we have, we don't refer patients overseas, we treat them here.
Are they treatable? Are some of these cases curable?
Yes, they are curable, but they have to be on medication sometimes for life. But what happens is that when you treat them, they get better, they stop all medications, and then they relapse. And when they relapse, you have to start treatment all over again. The most difficult ones are the drug abusers. You treat them for drug abuse, they get well. When you discharge them, they go back to take their tramadol, to take their heroin, to take their cocaine and so on, alcohol and everything. So as you can see, just like hypertension, diabetes is treatable. But then you have to be on treatment in most cases for life.
Dr. Nahim, let me send the discussion now over to our audience for their interaction with you. Amongst the people here, we have some from College of Medicine. So we deliberately got from College of Medicine as well. Perhaps your story might inspire someone from that institution to say, okay, I'll go study psychiatry. So yes, the floor is all yours, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm Alfred Usman Kamara, College of Medicine, College of Medicine. I'm really motivated, but there are also questions. One of the questions I've been thinking about is that, as you know, there are a lot of specialization in the field of medicine where you can make money, like the dermatologist, the gynecologists and the obstetrics. There you make a lot of money. So why do you choose psychiatry to other field of specialization? That is one. Then two is, how do you cope or do you interact with your patients? Do you behave as crazy as they are or mentally deformed? Or especially those that have this psychiatric trauma, how do you interact with them?
Well, I'm a lecturer at College of Medicine.
Yeah. Yes,
in fact, if anything, I started College of Medicine. There was no College of Medicine, but when we came from the Soviet Union, we went and spoke to the president, then was Secretary Stevens, that, you know, we want a medical school. And he said, well, we don't have lecturers. And I told him we are going to lecture for free. So that was how we started College of Medicine. And I've been a lecturer in the College of Medicine for over 20 years.
Wow. Wow.
And not only College of Medicine lecturer, I'm an examiner. And, you know, at one point, you ask the students, do you want to do psychiatry? Do you know what they will do? They laugh at you. So as you can see, even the students are not interested in College of Medicine. And your second question was what?
Why did you choose psychiatry instead of the other?
No, I told you the reason why I chose psychiatry was, you know, there was no psychiatrist in Sierra Leone, and I wanted to produce or to give, you know, my services to the nation. As I said, money was not my problem. I'm from a family where, well, the family is not very poor, but at least we are comfortable, which means up till now, you can't believe it. The money I make, I give to people. I don't know why anyway. Maybe that's also crazy. If you start giving your money to people just like that, then something's wrong with you.
Yeah, well, there was another one. Has your experience working with these patients affected your sanity in any way?
In the mental hospital, the nurses working with patients sometimes get crazy. Okay. And there was time when, after some time, you'll have to admit even the nurses. With me now, what I do is, when I go home, I block myself from the patients I was talking to. And I don't want to see visitors, I don't want to talk about psychiatry, I don't want to talk about anything, because it can affect you.
Yeah.
And suicide is, you know, very common in psychiatrists all over the world because it affects them. When you listen to problems every day, then that problem can affect you. Sometimes it does affect me as well.
Yeah.
You see, but as I said, I can cope with my problems, and I don't know. I can scream at patients for no reason. Then I'll regret it and apologize to them. So as you can see, it does affect those working with mental ill patients.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's have more of your questions. And yes, my dear, go on.
Yeah, thank you very much again, Dr. Nahim. You said the psychiatry, the Kisi Mental Hospital is the oldest in all of Black Africa. So, and there was no psychiatrist in Sierra Leone. So how was the mental illness treated back then before you became a psychiatrist?
No, well, you know, this was a British colony.
Okay.
And during that time, all the doctors and nurses were British. They were white British. There was no Sierra Leonean doctor there.
Okay.
In fact, all of Sierra Leone in those years, all the doctors were British. There was no black Sierra Leonean doctor, not at all.
Okay.
So as you can see, they managed the hospital. It was when they were leaving that they handed over the hospital to the Ministry of Health. And then we started to bring in our own doctors and nurses. So it was a British hospital anyway, British West African hospital then.
Okay.
So as you can see, that was how it functioned. And the first hospital in Sierra Leone was the Kisi Mental Hospital. It was not a hospital.
Okay.
They called it an asylum. Asylum where they brought in patients from England, from Latin America, from the United States, and so on. And it was a reception center for freed and recaptured slaves then. You know, they would admit them there, treat them when they're well, discharge them, and so on. So as you can see, it was all British, not Sierra Leonean.
Wow. Yes, let's have more of your questions as we wrap up. Yes, go on. Okay.
How are we going to minimize the weight as a Sierra Leonean or as a nation towards the total figure that you just highlighted that are mentally ill?
Okay, so we'll take those questions, then he answers. Yes, you wanted to ask a question as well?
Yes, sir. My name is Manuel Contal. Like, I've been a young since I was in the mother's home. But like, I want to ask a question. How do you cope about these crazy people? Like, when you are treating them, what if these crazy people are more healthier than you?
For physical fights. Okay, yes, let's take yours.
Okay then, I'm Mamoli Maga from Albert Kano, and then I have 3 questions.
Go on.
One is...
You will tell me the questions, please.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Nahim, you said when you're in where you go to, you are attending your first university. When you get married there, you was under control. Why? Secondly, what if science students outside here that he wants to study psychiatrist, what's your own support to that individual? 3, did people with mental ill get well totally?
Okay. So do you have patients who get well completely?
Well, to begin with, there are many patients working in very serious offices who have psychiatric problems, who are on treatment and functioning very well, or they are on treatment. So as you can see, they function very well. And as I said earlier, there is nobody who is 100% mentally well. You see, it's a matter of degrees, some 5%, others 20%, others 30%, and so on. If you go to some of these offices, you look at the bosses, the way they behave, and you ask my question, my God, is this man normal or not? You see, but when he goes home, you know, the wife and the kids also suffer as well. So as you can see, they do get well anyway with treatment. But yes.
Permanent healing?
No, they have to be on treatment.
So it's not permanent?
No, it's not permanent. No, you don't stop treatment. You stop treatment, you get a relapse. So as you can see, you have to be on treatment all along, even when you're well.
Okay, so would, he was also asking you your support to those who would want to go and study psychiatry.
Well, what I normally do is, if you want to go and study psychiatry, I give you a letter of recommendation and you'll be accepted. But when you get there, you know, it's the teachers, the lecturers, and so on that take care of you. We give you the support here, we give you a scholarship. Anybody who wants to do psychiatry will get sponsorship from government. That one is immediate. But the point is to get the individual who is interested in going to study psychiatry. So you want to do psychiatry, we recommend you, they give you the scholarship, and you go.
Okay, so for now, I would just take those questions as as the only questions for now because of the timing. Of course, after the whole episode, you get to get more encounter with him. But Dr. Nahim, just before I let you go, my concluding question for you for this episode. You've painted a picture of how being a psychiatric doctor, is really, really risky. The pay is not there, that's one. You get an encounter with the patients that's scary, it's life-threatening. With all these said, how would you now still encourage people to go study psychiatry? What would be the most sane reason to think about for people to go study psychiatry?
Well, to go study psychiatry, you have to be properly sane yourself. Otherwise, you'll have serious problems. As I said, your coping mechanisms, you know, must be very strong. You see, if you have a problem, you should know how to solve your problem.
But if I use you as an example now with all you've been through, the pay, all the other challenges, I would be scared of studying psychiatry. I would want to go to do something that gives me more money. So what advice would you give to other people, a reason why they should study psychiatry?
Well, in psychiatry, not that you cannot make money. You can make money, it depends. You know, there are some patients you never can tell. They will give you quite a good amount of money. And as a matter of fact, psychiatry is becoming popular worldwide now. And there are programs, you know, that might sponsor you. So if you want to do psychiatry, I don't think you will remain poor. No way. You'll get some money. For example, I've traveled all over the world on mental problems. You know, you go and give a lecture, go for a seminar, go for a conference, and so on. I've traveled all over the world. When I say I traveled, there was a time every month I was out of Sierra Leone. So as you can see, you can enjoy your life. Yeah.
Dr. Nahim, thank you very much for being a part of the Phebe Swill platform today.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me.
You're welcome, sir.
Yeah.
And my closing courtesy today, it's just one sentence. Dr. Edward Nahim is a hero. We appreciate you, Dr. Nahim, and continue to dedicate your time and service to Sierra Leone.
Thank you very much.
And thank you all for watching the Phebe Swill platform. We've had an exclusive talk with Dr. Edward Nahim, who is the consultant psychiatrist in the country. Cheers.